Hi, good morning, and good morning to everyone who's with us this morning on our Friday Live. Here talking about humanizing the world of work for half an hour on our LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube channels. How are you doing, Ant, this morning?
Yeah, after that video, very peaceful. That was really nice. It's very us, isn't it? It's very Brighton. It's very, it's really peaceful. But yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, and I was looking at that, watching, and on the side, because every time I watch it, I see something new. And on the side, there's someone stood on the side of the beach, and I was just thinking all the times I stood on that beach. Actually, there is something incredibly calming, isn't there, about reliving a moment? And it's like when we talk about strengths. Actually, you relive the moment when you were talking about using your strengths. You can have the same feelings about how you were actually feeling at the time you were using those strengths, and it often gives you a big boost. It was something me and Joshua used to talk about a lot in workshops we were facilitating together. So what's going on this week? My goodness, we are feeling, a rush of busyness from everyone. We are racing towards the holiday season and the end of 2021. That's not been what anyone was expecting. No. And we are really focused on staying true to humanizing work in terms of our vision with our clients and partners and all our friends. And there's a lot going on. And what I notice more than anything else, I sit on LinkedIn an awful lot, people know that, is that I keep seeing new messages of I'm leaving here, I'm starting here, and thinking about the onboarding process that so many people will be going through right now, right the way across all organizations to get people up to speed in terms of coming into new jobs, starting new things, and starting new things before the end of the year.
Yeah, starting new things for the end of the year and starting new things coming into the new year as well, and we've been talking about it a little bit with clients this week. What is that onboarding process, not just for new line managers or people stepping up into roles, but more so, people now more than ever moving by the droves, as we know, and joining new companies. And it's not just the skills that they need, and there is a gap, as we know, and all of that's reported. But there's kind of a new leadership style. There's a new approach. There's maybe new values or ways of working, remote working, hybrid working, that if you've been here throughout the pandemic, then you might have kind of cultural ways of doing things within your organization. You're moving into a totally new place and you don't know all of those cultural norms. And I love the phrase that you used just before here, kind of the beating heart as well. So what's the humanness that you have to learn and you have to kind of find your feet with. But yeah, that's what we're unpacking today.
Yeah, it is. And I'm thinking about that kind of the human heart of business and what does it really mean to be human. We've talked about this from lots of different angles, and I think it's really good to keep talking about it because I'm hearing about it in lots of different ways, and also lots of generalizations and assumptions that it's just about care and compassion and empathy and that's it and move on. And actually what we're talking about obviously is something so much bigger and so much more impactful for people, processes right the way across the world in terms of all organizations, all markets, all companies, and really thinking about the step change that's required from traditional methods that were fine and still are probably quite fine in their basic format, but that human lens is really needed now, and it's needed now more than ever. And if we don't really understand that, and if leaders don't understand that, then we're going to be struggling over the next couple of years for sure in terms of retaining and attracting new people. And I know we talk about lots of different parts of the employee life cycle in terms of unpacking what human experience means, and we've talked about different parts of that, and what I'm thinking about now with so many people moving is the onboarding process being something that's potentially being elongated more than ever, because what I notice is that the supposed kind of bounce back for the economy has totally been elongated. It didn't happen in the pace that everyone was anticipating. And I'm hearing all these positive vibes, but it's certainly not hitting everyone at the same time. It's really various. But also people are tired. People are taking their time to think about what they're doing next year. So maybe people are taking some time out before they start new roles. And I'm wondering how much longer this whole onboarding process is now than ever before.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because I guess we're feeling the busyness because we're dealing with loads of different clients all over the world. But actually what we are noticing is these processes having to be a bit more drawn out, because they have to take a bit more time, because there's almost so much more newness to learn in that onboarding phase. Leadership styles have had to adapt, ways of working digitally and with the new skills, and okay, you've been using Microsoft Teams, you might have to move over or whatever. There's all of these different elements, plus the fact, like you said, the economy might not have bounced back. So, your role within that industry might be very different, and you might be learning and growing as a team and as an organization to redefine what it actually means to play that role that you might have been playing for 5, 10, 15 years. And now you're moving into a role and it feels like a totally different, new, and hopefully new, exciting opportunity, but there's all of that unknownness. So it makes sense to elongate the process.
And I wonder what that means for teams as well, in terms of teams that have maybe, lost several people, and then they've got newcomers in that they need to onboard. And so therefore they've been put into a new team anyway. And so they have a new team. And what does that really mean in terms of their own role and their own kind of status within that role, with new people, with new skills and contributions coming through? It changes us, doesn't it? Things don't stay the same. So how are we going to get teams to be able to use that onboarding process for the most valuable parts they can, and have that human kind of meaningful connection that keeps the team bonded and knitted together? Because, in this, certainly in the more hybrid world, the sense of team is so much more important, isn't it? That people don't feel isolated. So how are we going to keep those teams together? And traditional methods aren't going to cut it. Simply doing a psychometric and being able to understand the difference between, I'm slightly more logical and I'm slightly more analytical here. That's not enough. It's got to go to the next level. It's got to be about what I love, what I care about, what I do naturally, what gives me energy, what makes me want to get out of bed in the morning. And that's, for me, the human heart piece. Is where is if we use that question to just jog ourselves and to remind ourselves when we're in play, when we're in work and our head is down focusing on something, is saying to ourselves, what is the human heart in this? I wonder how much we'd be able to almost like click in and realize with our own intuition and our own wisdom as humans what's missing and what we need to do.
I mean, you've used the word click, and we've termed the human switch on your human, make sure it's switched on, consciously do it. And I think you're right. It's kind of, how do we make sure, and it can't just be the leader that is responsible for that onboarding. It is a team thing now. It is how do we empower the team as a whole? How do we create a team culture that kind of puts an arm around this new person and really understands, not, like you said, not just, whether they're a ENTJ or kind of their personality type because it's on a piece of paper. It's how do we really delve in and have a really good conversation, maybe as a group, maybe one-to-one, maybe between each other, about who they really are and and that might be new. That might be a really new conversation for a lot of people. That can feel quite different and quite jarring, especially if you've come from an organization that maybe hasn't had that sort of practice before. But I think it's a really important point to make in the onboarding process to allow that space. And I suppose that's another reason for elongating that process more than ever, is to allow that space for those deeper connections to take place. And what is the human heart, and what are those conversations, is a really hot topic at the moment for a lot of people, I know.
Yeah, and we need snippets, don't we? Certainly leaders do. They're so overloaded. They don't need to be reading something really big and long and extrapolated. That what they want is just the quick reminder, the little nudge, the small micro action that pushes them into that phase of like, of course I know this stuff. Yeah. I am a human myself. I can do this. And I think so much we underestimate people's intuition so much, and our intuition comes from who we are as a human, all the challenges and experiences we've had in our lives, and how we navigate our world. And yes, that includes some bias as well. So we know that that is kind of, to a certain extent, it's our own lens. But it's also very important that we do have that, and we are able to use our identity and our knowledge and everything we uniquely contribute to this world for the good and positive intent that we can have, particularly when bringing new people into a team, or when trying to connect a new team together.
Yeah, and it's difficult, right? Because you've got global teams potentially coming together for the first time. You've got different experiences and roles and personalities, and that might be all very different. But at the heart of everything, we've used the word heart again. But at the heart of everything, we're human, and you know, it is important to tap into your own needs. What do you want as a human being? Not just me, but as a human being, what do I need to thrive? And kind of using that to build that kind of other awareness to help other people on board and feel like they belong and feel like they really do genuinely feel included, and can thrive in that new environment, because it is a potentially very scary one for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. And that fear is real. We need to also, we had a great post just come through about the fact that a lot of employers are increasing notice periods in the last year, to manage their workloads and to be able to manage the transition with so many people leaving. And I completely understand that as an employer myself. You know, it is, you have to look at the risks of what's going on and how to manage that. But at exactly that point there, people's engagement happens very quickly after handing in notice. And this person said 3 to 4 weeks, but I would offer potentially much sooner than that, I think, in most cases. And you know, that whole exiting process is really quite intense for some people, and it matters as well, doesn't it, in terms of how people, you know, remember you when you know, they're talking about you and how you experience that organization and kind of what you're leaving behind, as well as you know, your reputation going forward into a new career step. And I think it's really, really hard because, you know, I've been in that situation before when I've handed notice in and I've thought to myself, oh gosh, I've got to do it. I've got to keep going for another however many weeks and months. And, you know, it takes a lot. Sometimes it takes some people hang on right until they absolutely have to before handing in notice. And actually by then they're done. And so what can we do to keep people feeling okay and human about that process? It's so hard.
Yeah, well, I think you've touched on it there, right? It's a human process. I think it's well known now that people aren't going to stay in roles their entire life, or it's a lot rarer now for people to stay in that role for their entire life. So it's almost, there is a lot of emotion because as human beings, when you're part of something, if you feel included in a team or in an organization, I guess there's and I can only speak from my own experiences, but there's elements of guilt, there's elements of excitement, there's elements of nervousness, there's all these really high intense emotions that people are experiencing during that stage. And it can very easily, if negativity bias creeps in, can become very negative experience. 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, probably. You know, it's very different for different people, but I guess having a very human and understanding and honest approach to things, keep checking in, keep reminding, you know, I know you must be feeling all of these different emotions right now. How is that for you? What's happening? What are you excited by? What's draining you? And obviously the ideal is that, you know, maybe not always going to happen because you might be leaving because you're totally disengaged. In which case, is it realistic to expect someone to suddenly be engaged in their final few weeks? Probably not. But there's a lot of human emotion. I think it's about tapping into that and creating that culture to talk honestly about what's going on.
Yeah, and maybe there's something that strikes me that I think drives people to want that kind of longevity and give us some time to find someone new and all of that, is because I think a lot of businesses have focused so much in the past on tacit knowledge. and that knowledge sits with people, and people have recognized that no matter how good your CRM is or how well you've involved other people, relationships happen between individuals, and organizations want to hang on to that as long as they can for their clients and their customers, don't they? But actually, I think this really pushes organizations and leaders as well to really think about simplifying things so that people can pick things up more easily, and that we're not overly reliant on someone who's got 10 years knowledge, because does it need to be that complex? And I think that's the question that's going to really help us going forwards, because I don't see this, this pattern changing. I think people are still going to continue moving over the next couple of years quite a lot, and maybe this is just going to be the pattern of the future, that people have many more roles, and if so, organizations will have to reduce their complexity as much as possible so that individual roles are much easier to pick up, and it's easier to onboard people into teams, and that actually there's more of this sense of teaming there, where people can pick up together very quickly and perform well together. And what are the steps that we need to get in place for organizations to do that, so that it's not kind of scared of the risk of losing the information and the knowledge and those relationships, because they will happen in a different way.
And you touched on a really important part. Being human and having that human connection is not just a people strategy, it's a risk mitigation strategy, it's a business continuity strategy. If people aren't connected and sharing knowledge and sharing their learning and creating that culture of growth mindset, and these are all the things that human beings have done for as long as human beings have been around, sharing knowledge, becoming adaptable, overcoming challenge. But we have the luxury now of having technology to capture some of that tacit knowledge in people. So how do we simplify it? How do we make sure that those processes are really simple, but also how are we capturing those kind of moments and those experiences really well? But also, how are we making sure that we've got the connection between people that actually want to go and learn and share and to kind of pass on that knowledge just through everyday conversation. I agree.
It takes the learning organization to another level altogether, doesn't it? The learning organization is something that's been around for a very, very long time, but it's almost like the transition to digital. It's never been more relevant now than before. So we knew it was coming in some shape or form, and it's hit us obviously with the pandemic so quickly, and it's forced us into this new reality. And exactly that is how can we make sure that we are able to function in that way without it kind of causing loads of risk to the business, because it's going to be distracting people from their plans, their strategies. Performance is without doubt going to be affected. And then how do you have conversations with people who are overloaded, under-resourced? It's more about stripping back the plan. But how can we strip back the plan in a competitive economy when people are trying to bounce back and you're finally seeing demand after a long wait? I think those kind of contentious issues are going to be just so top of mind for senior leaders right now, in terms of how do they keep their business focused going forwards without just stalling. Essentially, not just elongated onboarding processes, but there's going to be an awful lot of stalling, isn't there, still to come. And those organizations that are agile and fast and able to sprint ahead are going to be the ones that win, basically. It's going to be, and they'll be the most exciting ones and the ones that people move to. But this learning organization piece it's fascinating, because I've long been keen to ensure that we at Bailey and French, that we're a learning organization that is learning how to learn. So rather than just kind of parachuting in people with new skills to upskill everybody in the organization, actually we're taking a paced growth perspective where we actually are developing a capacity to learn as an organization. So we learn what the external world needs, as a whole group and a whole team, which means that, we're not being told by an expert necessarily. And sometimes that can be really daunting, if you don't know necessarily. And I think that's that scary space for innovators and pioneers, is that you don't really know. There's nothing out there that tells you how to do this new thing, but it's about knowing your clients, knowing your customers, knowing your relationships so well that actually you just drive forward with a simplistic focus on what is needed right now, without having to go through a model or a framework or a structure that tells you how to do things. They can be really helpful if you're confused, but actually we do know, and we need to know how to learn together, and to sit down and say, okay, well, this is a problem, but we're going to solve it because we know this. We've done things like this before. We can do it. And that's far more exciting, isn't it, than having someone come in and tell you how to do something new and different. I certainly find it more exciting.
Well, no, but that's it, right? So how do the skills that we need to be learning, I can't remember where I read this. I think it was last week though that I read it, and it was a really interesting article that was, we're not going to be learning skills. We are going to be learning ways of finding out how to solve problems. It's not so much about a skill that you have to deliver in a role now. It's about, and I guess this is similar with the human kind of connection and human side of things. You're not learning how to build a relationship and a really structured way of building that relationship. You're equipping yourself with tools and techniques and questions and kind of models of thinking. But the idea is to help you explore yourself. And that's why we say that, psychometrics only get you so far. The whole point of this is so that you go and explore yourself, and through that learning process, you learn how to learn, as you said.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because if you break that down even further, it's actually just about confidence. It's actually like, I know this and I've got these frameworks, but I'm going to go ahead and own this and do this thing here right now. I'm going to pull the right people together. I'm going to have the right conversation. I'm going to make this situation better in whichever way I can. But that takes quite a lot of confidence to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to push forward. I'm going to try and make a difference here, rather than waiting for someone else to step in because perhaps someone else has had that role before. And that's where I think it's kind of breaking down barriers and hierarchy and power and status is really going to be key as well, through the next few years, is being able to say, it's not about how many years I've been doing this, but it's about, can I see a pathway through? And if I can, and I can see some new thinking here, then actually it's almost helpful that I don't have 10 years experience. It's almost helpful that I can come in and go, well, why are we doing it that way? That doesn't make any sense. And being able to bring that through. And again, it comes back down to psychological safety, which we talk about a lot. People being able to say, this just doesn't make sense, guys. Honestly, we've got to look at this from another angle. And that's hard when you're at pace and you've got so much on your plate. We were talking about this earlier in the week. We can set out our priorities on Monday, and then on Tuesday something else happens, and it's as urgent and important as the previous priorities were on the Monday. So we just add them to the list. So by the time we get to Friday, our list is grown by like 3 times of all the things that are urgent and important, and we feel much more kind of heavy with it. I like wanting to get things done before the weekend so that we can relax at the weekend. I don't know about you, but if I've got something hanging over me, it's better for me to do it on a Saturday morning because I just cannot get on with the kind of downtime.
Yeah, and that's always the challenge, isn't it? And myself included in that, I feel like that. You feel like, hey, I need to get that thing done because then come Monday, I'll be clear-headed. But we all know what happens on a Monday, and you never feel clear-headed because there's all this new stuff that's happening. And for me personally, one of the things that's really helped me is actually having the confidence that you don't know. And that's okay too. And we talk a lot about psychological safety, and what that really does for me personally, if I feel safe in a team, it means that I can be vulnerable and go, do you know what? I don't know. But actually now I've said that out loud, I can focus intentionally on finding out the problem, like solving the problem and figuring out a way to do it, which I very much have confidence in myself to be able to do because I've done it before where I haven't known things and I've worked them out, and we've gone through that as a team together and we've been successful. So actually you end up wasting less time throughout the week I know what I'm doing. I know what's happening. Don't need help. Actually, it's really healthy for teams right now to explore what they don't know together and lean on each other's skills and experiences and strengths and work out a way to learn and grow together. And a lot of people have been talking about time management. You've just touched on it, and priorities. I think a lot of it actually would be solved if people were just open and vulnerable about what they don't see or what they can't see. Or maybe someone's giving you feedback going, and you've missed that. Let's build on that. And I think that whole team support element, and we talk about it in terms of team flow, that whole sense of learning, feedback, leaning on each other's knowledge and skills and strengths and deepening those connections together so we know where those gaps and those strengths are, is so vitally important for time management. Time management is not now just a case of to-do lists and becoming more skilled in prioritization. It is those things, but it is also a lot more of the human stuff as well.
And it comes back to that point that Sally just mentioned about role ambiguity, because there is a tension there, isn't there? Because I'm sitting here thinking, I know that if I've got a problem, I could probably just say, is anyone free? I just need to sort something out. And a whole bunch of people would go, yeah, I'll have a go. And actually we'd all come together. And it's about bringing the right people together to say, actually, I just need your brain on this because I really trust you and I really value your different perspective on the world. And yet, of course, then that does create role ambiguity for people who think they're there to do one set of things. And this is what I'm expected to do. And this is what I'm accountable and responsible for. And having the flex that's required in that to be able to know that yes, on a day-to-day basis, there are things that need to get done. But actually what we want from you is your humanness. We want your being and your presence and your brain and your heart to be in the thing that we're focusing on today. And the climate and the world that we're working in requires that now more than ever. Is just we need you as a person, a whole human, to bring yourself into this scenario and do what you can do with it if you can, and clearly say if you can't. It's also that stepping back and saying, you know what, this isn't for me, I've got no clue what you're talking about, I'm going to move
what's
out
going
of
on.
Because I think a lot of people feel they should be in that scenario. I should be able to answer these questions, and it's not for everyone. Some people, lots of different problems for different people, but I think there's something powerful there, isn't there? And we're already down to 2 minutes left, Ant. What a great conversation we've had this morning.
every week. I say it every week, and it never. I think so. Key takeaways, I guess. Let's go through key takeaways, because I'm very conscious there's always so much that we cover. And for me, it's tying this all together: onboarding, slowing it down, making sure that we have the human at the heart of it, but we're focusing on humans connecting and sharing knowledge quickly, and maybe even doing that before people join. If they're disengaged, and knowing that they're disengaged in the last role, maybe we can ramp up quicker on the onboarding side of things, and use that to our competitive advantage. But make sure we do the human stuff first, because deeply connecting and understanding what people love, what people enjoy, what was it that someone's really passionate and driven by, and why did they move, and not just why did they move job, but what's the point, what's the purpose, what are they trying to do different in their life, not just in work. All of those things are fundamentals for me.
Yeah, good summary. Thank you. So we'll leave it there, and we'll look forward to another Friday Live next week. I hope everyone listening has a fantastic weekend when you get there. It's lovely and sunny down here in Sussex. I hope everyone's got a crisp and frosty, fresh morning outside their window today. So I hope some of what we've talked about will resonate throughout the conversations you have today, and you'll be able to bring them into some of your thinking along the way. And do share with us any thoughts and comments or any questions. We'll carry on chatting through LinkedIn and our other channels too. So thank you for joining us. Thanks a lot, Ant. I always love talking to you in these sessions. So speak to you later.
Speak to you later.
Bye.